Benjamin.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing very well. And yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad you joined me. I'm really, really excited about our conversation. I think it's going to be powerful. I'll just get started with what I wrote down. You and I first connected on Threads. I was really inspired to reach out. Your words really provoke something in me. I feel like we are processing and coming to some similar conclusions about things. And so your words really invoked something in me that was vulnerable and real, especially when it came to your expression, when it comes to being a man and the things that you're willing to share. You're really, really honest and truthful. And yeah, so I can't wait to explore some topics with you. Thank you for your trust in me. And I don't know why they all of a sudden decided to be moving stuff outside our door right now. It's hilarious. Okay, well, either way, we're going to get started with where were you born or where did you grow up?
I grew up in Santa Cruz, California.
That's right.
Yeah.
I knew that.
I was born in North Hollywood, but raised in Santa Cruz.
Interesting. Was there a reason why your parents or your family moved to Santa Cruz in particular? Did they just want the beach life?
Yeah, I mean, so I think, they were, like, my dad has always been a little bit of a deadhead. And, so like pretty hippie kind of folks. And my parents split when I was 5. And I think my mom was like, I need to get out of Los Angeles. And so she decided to move to Santa Cruz. My dad would drive up every weekend until eventually his business down in Hollywood folded. And then he moved up himself.
Okay. So both of your parents eventually lived in Santa Cruz.
Yes.
But not together. And do you have any memories of being in
I have vague recollections
Okay.
of a very close friend named Sethi and playing Contra with him on a video game console.
Oh, what is Contra?
It's like a shooting game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How old are you? Do you mind telling us?
Probably like 4 or 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This was in the 90s?
Late 80s.
Late 80s.
I moved to Santa Cruz in right before the 89 earthquake. So basically, I moved there, I saw it for a moment, and then half the city was in tents.
Yeah. Wow. So it was really powerful there.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay. I was not up in the Bay Area by then, but I went to school at Sonoma State, and then my daughter actually went to kindergarten at the Santa Cruz Waldorf School, and my ex-husband had family in Capitola, and so I spent a lot of time over there. I also worked at that 24-hour fitness as a personal trainer, and then I opened up a personal training company. This is like 25 years ago, a long time ago. Either way. Yeah. So very familiar with that area, but I did not grow up in that area. I grew up in Southern California like you, which is why I was asking if you remembered that experience. I find our similarities are interesting. Okay, so what did you love doing as a child?
Reading was the biggest thing. The 89 earthquake kind of set the tone for the next probably 10 years of my life. I was through 9 schools by the time I was 16 years old.
Wow.
So it was basically just due to poverty and also trying to put us into whether it was like a better school or whatever, So my friends were books. I had a few friends that I got close with, but then usually either they would move away or I would move. And so I was pretty socially isolated. And so when I was able to go hang out with a friend and play video games, I really liked that. I didn't dress, I dressed in jeans and a t-shirt every day, didn't really care much about appearance. And I would stay up until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, reading Mercedes Lackey, or I think I read Dune 6 times by the time I was 16 years old. And yeah, so I think that reading would have been the biggest one. I was occasionally involved in sports, but then I'd be there for a season and then I'd change schools again and that would all fall apart again.
So what were your favorite kinds of books?
Fantasy,
Yeah,
primarily.
I was going to ask.
Sci-fi as well.
Yeah, me too.
I remember also really loving this book called it was like Maverick. I don't quite remember the name. I think there's like the one Hatchet where like this kid like survives out in a. But I was voracious. Like I would basically go through my parents' library. I found their copy of The Joy of Sex when I was 12, and I read it cover to cover.
Of course you did. You were very curious.
Yeah.
Very curious. Probably a little precocious.
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe the way that my teachers would always say is he's so smart if he'd only apply himself.
Uh-huh. I can understand. I think that you had a lot going on at home. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you spend that much time picking up, starting over again, picking up, starting over again, you're probably fairly tired of trusting people, or you don't know how long they're going to stay or last in your life, and it's really hard to make roots. And so that was very, very, I can imagine, very lonely.
Yep.
And books were your friend, and books were my friend too, for similar but not really similar reasons. I did move schools several times and for different reasons, but I can absolutely relate. Do you think that you were attracted to sci-fi and fantasy because as a soul, you could remember being in those places?
It was more that for one, I needed escape. When the few times that I read like nonfiction or kind of fiction more based in like, the current reality, like it would remind me too much, like when you, with fantasy and sci-fi, you make the problem larger than the characters in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're exploring a whole new world and it doesn't allow for all the nuance of like how difficult it would be to actually exist in that world kind of creep in. Instead, you're just experiencing a state of wonder about the world that this person has created.
Mm-hmm.
It's like interesting rereading Dune many years later. It's like he creates the most amazing world, and yet, the depth of his characters is not actually that good.
Sure, but he's a human, right?
Oh yeah, but he's also he's another, like, he's a man writing, and what I have discovered is like even one of my other favorite authors, Luke McMaster Bujold, I thought was a man for much of my life, and then discovered that they are a woman, and I believe maybe non-binary, but I'm not sure. I don't want to speak to that for them.
Right.
But she had incredible depth, or they had incredible depth to their characters emotionally, that I always, really resonated with. There was another author named Mercedes Lackey who had like these ethereal elfin creatures who, would all fall in love with each other and have all their problems. And I loved both world creation, but I really identified with the emotional worlds.
With the characters. Yeah. And the story of the characters. Mm-hmm. I agree. I did too. But I think for me, I absolutely wanted to escape. But I think that there was something also kind of a recognition or a reckoning for me. Mm-hmm. I just really feel like some of those, what is the inspiration for some of those stories, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
So either way, we could go down that rabbit hole.
For a long time.
Yeah, we could talk about books for a while. What is one of your earliest memories of feeling love, and with whom? Mr. Lover of Aesthetics.
So my parents were teenagers when they had me, and even younger when they had my sister. My mom dropped out of high school when she was pregnant with my sister.
Were they high school sweethearts?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And, so like when I think about my parents, like they would take us on adventures, and, you know, like we went through a lot together. You know, my childhood was obviously very challenging.
Yes.
But at the same time, you know, whenever I looked in my parents' eyes, and even if we were fighting, it's like I could see love still being communicated. And I think that that's one of the many things that helped prevent me from going down a darker path, was like, even though these people were hurting me, and, you know, there were elements that, you know, one could construe as emotional abuse.
Yes.
They were not done with malice or intention. And so, you know, like I feel very blessed to have been loved as well as my parents loved me. You know, I remember us going and having like whenever the family would all get together, you know, my mom is a phenomenal community creator. And so,
Good for
you know,
her.
whenever we would have like a holiday, you know, she would bring everybody together and everybody would celebrate. You know, the home that she had with her ex-partner of 15 years, you know, was like the gathering place for many, many people in a kind of disparate communities. And yeah, so, you know, love can take many forms. If you think about the romantic, you know, I mean, you know, the first person I dated was when I was 15. And that I wouldn't, you know, that was complicated. It was interesting, you know, because I had struggled with friendship for so much of my young life.
Yeah.
That, like, once I started being intimate, I was like, oh, like this gets people involved and invested in me. And this feels really good. And so for many years of my life, that's how I would often try to create relationship, was like through sexual intimacy. And it took me a long time to work my way out of that one. So yeah, love has been ever present. You know, when I was, the narrative that my mom shares with me and that I vaguely recall was when I was like a, you know, 4 and 5 year old, I would basically say to her, you know, like I'd start crying and she'd be like, why are you crying? And I'd be like, well, someone I could have loved just died. Like I was like a deep feeling child. Like, and I was convinced that like there was like I would create stories about why I was having deep emotions.
Wow.
So yeah.
And out of curiosity, I know you mentioned off air that you went to Reed College, which is here in Oregon, for those of you who aren't aware. It's fairly famous, however. And what was your degree in?
Economics.
Oh, wow. I
Yeah.
did not expect that at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the English creative writing major, so like maybe that's also why I was so drawn to you. Okay, so.
And I attended that as a non-trad. I only started going there when I was like 28.
Okay.
And I thought that I was going to head towards a career.
Okay.
And I had been working in the solar industry, and I just basically seen the boom and bust and how many times that industry would get built up and then collapse.
Oh, yeah.
And so I wanted to understand why
We
that
are
was
going
happening.
through that phase
Right
now.
I know, right?
Oh man, some of my favorite people that I follow on YouTube are economists. I'm fairly grateful for the truth that I have been afforded in the last year, and it's made me feel much more secure and safe with choices. Yeah.
But I also like to say it's astrology for business people.
Oh, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. I mean, it's also astrology for life in a lot of ways. You have to be paying attention because all of these things impact us, right? And especially if I have a core wound of security. When no wonder you picked economics. You were like, I want security.
Yep.
How do I predictably create that for myself coming from the family that smart? Good on you.
Thanks.
Good on you. I like that. At least you had a plan. I was like at college and I was like, I tested for being a graphic designer. However, they don't even have that department here. So I guess I'm going to be finding something else. Yeah, that was my plan. Okay. back to you. What is your favorite thing to do when you're expressing love?
Cook.
Ooh, how did you get into cooking?
Um,
Did I ask you this? No, I didn't.
so, I mean, I experienced it a few times when I was younger. I mean, like, I remember at one point, like, when I was sleeping around a lot when I was younger, and I, would make someone like a fancier version of ramen, and they'd be really appreciative of that. But I also, when I was growing up, my dad and I started going to this Korean restaurant down in Monterey that, like, this woman kind of adopted me. She was incredibly sweet. Every single time I came in, she'd be like, "Well, you're a growing young man, so you get extra meat and extra egg." And so Korean food became my kind of comfort food. And then I found a cookbook that I really loved. And so I started, I spent a year only cooking Korean food. And that's when I'd say that, like, my real relationship with cooking really began.
Really? Yeah. Through that culture?
Yeah, because, like the symbols of care within that culture, where they always have the banchan in the middle of the table. And, in most traditional Korean restaurants, you have as much of that as you want.
Yeah.
And so everybody makes sure that, like, they're well fed and well taken care of. And the amount of love that I experienced in that restaurant was just like, this is beautiful. So, I've cooked a lot of different things over the years, and I always enjoy it. But that was kind of when I really started. And also choosing a culture. I think in American culture, we get so involved in, like, oh, well, I want to cook this dish from this place and this dish from this place. But that gets really expensive and complicated. Filling out your pantry with all the spices and everything you need takes a lot.
Yeah.
And so I just, I was like, all right, I'm going to choose one. And,
and really learn it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. I mean, I love Korean food too. And I mean, I love your dedication to just really learning one thing and getting good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's like, learning an instrument or something similar. Yeah. Discipline, lots of discipline. Good for you. What was it like to grow up in your family? You did talk a little bit about that. Mm-hmm. What did you witness?
I witnessed two people doing the best that they could with what they had. And, I was a difficult child.
You were?
Oh, yeah. I would basically, after the age of 6, when my parents had split, I would go into rages about every 2 weeks.
Okay.
I would yell, I would scream, I would slam doors. And that went on until I was about 12 years old or so. And at one point, I went into a rage and I looked at my mother and I saw that she was actually scared of me. And from that moment on, I turned it off. And I don't experience rage like that ever since. I've been trying to figure out how to build a new relationship because I feel like there is value in anger.
There is. We can talk about that.
But I turned that off hard when I saw that I was starting to become a threat.
Okay. That explains a lot of who you've become. Okay, so the anger, I mean, of course you were angry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of course
I had
you were
every
angry.
reason to be, yeah.
Yeah, but no one in your family was modeling what healthy angry looked like. So of course your mom was afraid of you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, yeah, anger is really hard to express. My family didn't express it well either, still does not express it well. I'll leave it at that. But anger is just, what I tell people is, it's an alarm bell going off in your body. It's explaining to you in that moment that either someone else has crossed your boundaries or you've crossed your own. It's only information. Mm-hmm. And really, it's what do you do with it? Do you shove it down and pretend like it doesn't exist? Mm-hmm. And then it just erupts in other ways. Yep. Or do you lovingly accept that it's a core feeling And instead of ridding yourself of it, use the energy as power and motivation to get something done and powerfully in the world. That took me a very long time to learn myself.
I feel like I'm just starting with that right now.
Yeah, it takes a minute. And I would say that I've gotten even better at it in my 50s. But yeah, especially when you come from a family of, I mean, I can't make assumptions for you, but I came from a family of abuse. So anger was not shown healthily at all. Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of unlearning and a lot of addressing it, and not to point fingers at my parents, but we have to also accept the fact that they are not taking responsibility for any of it. But that being said, they did what they knew.
Yep.
And I sure did inherit a lot. Wow. Okay. So back to you. I'll probably say that a lot. What? Let's see. If you could change one thing about the way you were raised, what would it be?
I mean, I think just security and stability, you know, like I love who I am now. So in essence, I wouldn't change
Yeah.
anything at this point.
Same.
But, you know, like having the safety, you know, like when I was, so I made an error today in the timing of this. I showed up way too early because I got confused about my calendar. I was never taught to keep a calendar by my parents.
Yeah.
Like all of these things that I think many people, you know,
Take for
especially,
granted.
yes, you know, like how to like, you know, do a budget, you know, like all these.
Oh,
like,
I wasn't taught that.
Yeah.
I wasn't taught a lot of things too, but that was intentional on their part.
Yeah.
They didn't expect me to leave. They didn't want me to leave.
Yeah.
So for them, it was an effort on their parts to control, because they, you know, my two sisters still live in homes that they own. So,
Wow.
and my nephew lives in a home that he's going to inherit. And so I'm the only person who left, and they did it on purpose. They wanted us to be naive in the world and to rely on them. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I had no such choice in that matter.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was a conscious choice for me to leave, because I could see, I had two older sisters and I could see the impact of that. And I just chose differently. It was a very hard path. Yeah, an unsupported one. I was not popular. Still am not. However, I think I've lived a much more authentic and true to me life. And I've been able to unburden myself of a lot of what my sisters just haven't been able to break free from, right?
Yep.
So I know they see me as selfish. I know that at a certain point my parents are going to be at the end of their lives, and I'm going to have to step in a lot more than I've had the opportunity to step out. But until then, I am really enjoying, really enjoying unlearning some of the things that I was taught.
Yeah.
And it seems like you are too. You're really in a place of humbling and embracing who you truly are, and the things that, you know, I think one of your quotes, I had one of your quotes. I had your quotes. Where did they go? Yeah, you had some really great quotes. But either way, you were talking about like, and you're going to articulate it so much more beautifully because they were your words. But basically it was like, the door is open, but I'm working on.
Yes, I'm leaving the door open, but I'm working on the house until it sells itself.
Exactly. See? So good. And I was like, yes. Anyways, that's, I mean.
And that was in relation to someone asking like, oh, am I dating, or like, am I looking to date, or was I single, or something like that.
Yes.
So yeah, whole another story. But yeah, that I find that looking for a relationship tends to put you in the wrong mental state to actually receive the world in the way that is healthiest to receive it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something about being in a place of really connecting to yourself, what you love, who you are, being alone with yourself, enjoying your own company, fulfilling your life, doing your life's purpose, doing things that feel incredible to you. And then, you just magnetize somebody that is like that, right? Yeah, I agree. That's where I am too. Okay, so where are we? How were you taught, directly or indirectly, to hide your beauty, softness, or longing? We're going to start going deeper now. Do I need to repeat it?
No. I just going to take a moment to meditate on that, because that's I was a person whose heart would break so easily. And I think that one of the things that unfortunately happens when you learn to conceal or to move your rage in like different ways, and you learn to lock that away, is that you lock a lot of other things away at the same time. I think, I was lucky in certain regards where, like I was in a time of the early internet where you could reach out into the internet and create authentic connections in a way that it does not facilitate these days. When I was like 16, I became a pen pal with a girl in South Carolina through a website called gothicpersonals.com.
Nice.
And we were pen pals for 2 years. We ended up having a relationship later on. But,
Did they move to you or did you move to them?
She moved out here for a while.
Wow.
Yeah. Now she lives out in Austin.
You are an incredible pen pal, Jesus. I could tell on the threads. There's all that practice.
Yeah.
Good job. You're just honing your skills.
I think it's been really weird in the modern age, especially, when I was going to read, this was the time of the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing a girl that had like a patch on her backpack that just said male tears. And it was just so funny that like everybody wanted new vulnerability from men, but no one, it's like, but it was also, to be honest, it's dangerous for most women to engage with men's vulnerability because most men tend to interpret that kind of interaction as an invitation to intimacy.
Yeah.
And because they have been deprived of it so long and so deeply that whenever they receive it, it's like a man.
It's like crack cocaine.
Or like a person dying of thirst.
Yes. That has been in the desert for a very long time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, like I would say that I learned to deaden those parts of myself through pornography and video games and media. I still struggle with those things to this day.
Mm-hmm. It's a very common masculine, addiction, group of addictions.
Because I was very lucky in some regards. I had a mentor who coached me through far more of my emotions than, he was a gay black Jewish man who was in his 30s when I met him. And just completely took me under his wing.
As a romantic relationship? No. Okay. Just a mentor. Yeah.
Just a mentor.
Yeah.
No, he basically, we ran the same tabletop role-playing game with just him and I for 8 years, where he would create a whole world and then I would create a character to live in it.
That's so cool.
He was just...
My daughter is super into role-playing too. That's really interesting. Yeah, I feel like I missed out on that entire experience because when I was born, we didn't have the internet yet. So it didn't really come around until I was in college, really.
Well, and role-playing is only now, like, it was the thing that the weird, kind of social outcast kids did when I was playing.
Yeah.
Now it's like, they're creating whole TV shows like by the people who've been like role playing forever.
I know. It's so cool, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's really grown. It's a very cool way to use creative expression and creative talent, right? Yeah. And to build worlds.
Yes.
Same thing with, what was that called? when avatars first came out. It was
Like the early internet, like
yeah,
Second Life.
Second Life. Thank you.
And that's even an old reference now, which is funny.
I know. Oh my God, I knew him. Either way, the person who founded that. Okay, back to you, Benjamin. Okay. You often use the word beautiful to describe men, vulnerability, and even struggle. How do you personally define beauty?
I mean, the first word that comes to mind is vibration. When a person wants to meet the world with their whole heart, when they are willing to take the risks and to shed their shame in the expression of themselves.
So good. I don't think I could have articulated it better.
Because, it's like someone who's like a coal miner, who's like just come out of it, covered in muck, like they can be incredibly beautiful.
Yeah.
It's interesting. We live in such a kind of surface culture. Everybody's wanting to look pretty for the gram or whatever else.
Yeah.
And yet, like, there are people who are incredibly successful and viewed as beautiful who are adhering to very non-standard forms of beauty.
I agree.
And so really what it comes down to is like how you love the world and how you love yourself.
I agree, because it shines through. The better I love me, the better I am to the world. So yeah, that's also why I was drawn to you, right? Anybody that is a self-proclaimed lover of aesthetics, I was like, well, yes, look at my podcast studio. But also like, I'm really drawn to people who are embracing love right now, because it is what is going to heal this planet.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of work to do.
So much.
So much work to do. So I'm glad you're on the team, Benjamin. Really glad. When did you begin to understand beauty as something men could embody, not just admire?
Oh, that's a complicated one. So as I said, I felt very invisible up until I was about 15 or 16. And when the world started to perceive me as a nascent sexual being, I was started to be seen a lot more. That also included a wealthy friend of the family who, showered me with gifts and eventually took advantage of me.
You were 16?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was 15, 16.
Yeah.
And he was in his 40s.
Yeah.
I loved how I felt in those moments before I was taken advantage of.
Of course you did.
I loved being seen, and I loved being appreciated.
And valued and told that you're something.
That I have that, like, it, it's something that I have always been since then a little obsessed about, is wanting to be able to have the same quiet beauty and power that women have, but as a man.
Tell me more about that.
Well, like, a woman can exist in a place and invite attention without asking for it.
Well, that's your femininity, and you have both.
Yes.
It's just developing it, right?
Yeah. So, like, I've always, admired that, and so that's why I work on, my presentation and how I, my clothes and so on and so forth, is that I want to not always have to be, commanding attention or be like, oh, like, I don't always want to go up to someone and be like, oh, I want to date you. Like, I want to be able to invite that.
Yeah.
Or not even date, but like, I want to be so interesting. Like, I'm somehow managing to do a little bit on Threads right now that people invite me into their world and have a conversation with me.
Yes. Good for you. I love that. Okay. You've written that men are socialized to discount their own capacity for beauty. What gets lost when men are cut off from that part of themselves?
Everything.
Tell us more.
Like if you are disconnected from your own capacity to create beauty, then what purpose do you have in the world? You've been told your whole life that all it is to like be a provider of security. And yet what is security?
Tell us, what is security?
I mean, in this day and age, I don't know. But like, it used to be like, oh, you protect your woman. Like you have a capacity for violence in you that will, like insulate them from the violence of the world.
Yes.
That is the construction that they've been given.
And why is that different now?
Well, because, for one, even though we are immersed in a society that elevates violence, there is much less violence in the world than there once was.
Yes.
And
I can agree. Okay.
And
I'll keep going with that.
And that, it's like they were taught that, but they weren't also taught the fact that women are going to be subject to this violence in moments that they're not there. And so they have to be able to create a sense of emotional safety and care that allows for someone to heal from experiences of violence.
Yes.
And that's where they, fuck up. Or can I use that word here?
Yes.
Okay.
You can use any words.
That's where men really screw up, is that they don't know how. They're like, oh, well, I couldn't protect her from it. And so then often, like, if a man has a partner who goes through intimate violence, oftentimes they lose a portion of their own identity of like who they are as a man. And sometimes it can lead to the end of a relationship because they don't even know how to do the work internally. And so if men do not know how to create spaces of beauty within themselves and in the kind of physical context that they exist, then how do they create a place that feels safe and inviting where someone can allow themselves to like release themselves from the pressures of life?
Yeah.
And yeah, so like we've lost hobbies, so many of our hobbies are like video games and media. And not enough are like reading poetry and trying to write and, like reading there's a lot of philosophy dudes out there, but I feel
taking piano lessons.
Yeah. Singing lessons, dancing lessons. Men should dance.
Men should dance. Yeah, they absolutely should dance. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
On a slight digression, at one of the points when I was up here and trying to make a living, I did try to dance at the Silverado for a while.
Did you?
And I wanted to be pretty and I wanted to be like erotic, and they just want you to swing your bits around, and I also wasn't built enough for that. So
yeah. Well, I did that for a number of years, and it is an interesting industry. Yep. I will say that. When it comes to women, I would say that some women, I think, enjoy it. There are some women who do. And then there's some women who are trapped there for circumstances.
Yep.
And that's primarily most. And then a lot of them are just lost in the world, very lost in the world. So it's a very interesting and diverse population that is drawn to that profession, I can tell you that. But yeah, I did it for a number of years and it really informed me. I think for me, I didn't enjoy all of it, I will be honest with you. But for me, what it did is it informed my experience about men. It really helped me understand men in a way that my dad did not provide for me because he was completely absent. Yeah. And because he was completely absent, I was so curious to understand, like, why do you guys do that? I was already doing counseling. I was doing counseling more than I was doing any dancing.
Yep.
Not to say that I can't dance. I'm just saying that I did a lot of counseling.
It is one of the few places that men feel safe enough to go get that counseling.
Totally. And then in addition, Yeah, it was about the money for me for sure. But absolutely, like I built friendships there. I met a lot of people. It was a very informative time in my life, and I feel like it filled in gaps of awareness that I was deeply, deeply craving to. I don't know. I grew up in a completely, 4 women in one house, and my dad would just kind of like fly in and fly out every so often, and so. For me, that was my experience of it. So good on you to have the confidence, though, to do it. I mean, I felt like Bambi for the first time walking on stilts, but you get used to it eventually. But
I mean, one of the things I shared with a friend recently is that I have been recently going to strip clubs as more of like to be honest, a spiritual experience.
Yeah, tell us more about that.
I hunger for the erotic in my life.
And why is that?
I mean, eroticism is like a deep sense of feeling alive. And there's many ways to find eroticism. There's ways, I'm working on trying to have more of a personal erotic practice with myself because, it's very easy just to turn to the visual input.
For sure.
And,
I think as you get older, you start to realize,
Yeah. It's like, I want this to be more complicated. I want to have a more interesting internal landscape around my own eroticism, and so I have to do some work to change it. And that it's a place that some women feel very they're able to express themselves and play in a way that society will not allow them to for the most part. And then also there was a specific dancer that I just started to I was like, oh, like every once in a while I will pay for the time to just like be immersed in the sense of feeling like deeply alive in my body. There's times where I've gone to her and I just go like, I just want to feed you strawberries. Because like, if I've realized that if I cannot have it in my life in the way that I want, then I don't want to try to create it with people who can't meet me there. And so if I pay for it in certain instances, then I know that I'm like, okay, this is a container. I get to go have this experience and remind myself of what I want without complicating it.
Yeah. I also love the fact that women do, I can say, feel more empowered in that world. That's what I really learned about it. Because I used to say it was the only place where we really get to make the rules.
Yeah.
Outside the doors, never. But in that room, you basically are finally listening to me, and it's awesome. So it's very mutual. I had really great conversations, and I learned so much shit about men. I mean, it was awesome. Yeah. So I'm glad that you incorporate that in your life, and I think in a healthy way. It's really important for us to be in touch with our sexuality. Yeah.
And it also requires me to do a lot of work on moderating my own hunger because, when you have that connection and it feels very resonant, you have to recognize that this is still just a transaction for the other person.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, or you could be like my ex-husband and just eventually date that person. Right? Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, it does happen.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What would the world look like if men allowed themselves to be beautiful emotionally, spiritually, and aesthetically?
I mean, like it sounds like paradise. Like.
Do you think that's our future?
I certainly hope so.
Me too.
I certainly hope so. Because
I'm on that team.
Like any man who is invested in his own conception of his own beauty, like not just like, looking like swole for the gram or whatever, but like trying to interrogate and have a deep understanding of like what that means to him. He doesn't need to try to harvest it from the world. What I see and struggle with right now is that like, part of the sexual violence issues, that are very front of mind for everybody today is connected to the fact that men cannot create it for themselves. And so therefore they must consume it in everyone else.
Yes.
And if men learn how to have that kind of capacity to generate, then they're like, then they can just go out into the world and then they invite the kind of connection that they want, and that will feed them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, embrace the anima.
Mm-hmm.
Can vulnerability be erotic? And can it be revolutionary?
I mean, it is the most erotic thing. I mean, you know, when you feel safe enough with someone to reveal your heart and to like allow yourself to feel alive in the places that brought you shame, you know, you enable yourself to heal, and there is nothing more erotic than healing. What was the second part of the question?
Can it be revolutionary?
Oh yeah. There's a Instagram person that I really love.
Do tell.
Soft Moon Rose.
Okay, I'll have to go check it out.
She is definitely an erotic activist. She works primarily with women. I did work with her briefly, but you know, everything that she talks about is just like fall in love with your own erotic self and become alive in it. And you know, eroticism is not just about sex. Like, sex is a element.
It's all of the steps before, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, she speaks about it really powerfully, and so, you know, when I think about myself and when I think about how I am in the world, like I'm trying to create simultaneously a person who can create safety and create eroticism.
I love that.
Yeah.
What does it mean for a man to heal publicly, and how does that intersect with aesthetic self-expression?
I mean, I was very blessed, and when I was growing up, by being isolated, I was not subject to the usual kind of pressures of conformity that that many men are subject to. You know, like I wasn't, you know, like when I first started getting like dressing up and buying my own clothes, I started dressing up because I was LARPing, because I was playing vampire live action role playing. And so I have been subject to none of the usual systems of conformity. I was rollerblading around Santa Cruz in a floor-length zoot suit with a top hat, you know.
Of course you
with
were.
Hair down to here.
I love Santa Cruz. It's just as weird as Portland.
It's getting weird these days, but that's another story.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you learn to heal the wounds of a system of conformity that system of conformity has placed within you.
Yeah.
When you go like, what do I, you know, it's like when someone like tries on a dress for the first time and they feel pretty and they're like, what is this feeling? You know, and so often they'll conflate that with some concept of homoeroticism. And I'm like, well, I mean, homoeroticism, there's no problem with homoeroticism, but you know, it's even more terrifying than the sense of just feeling pretty.
Yeah.
And so,
especially when you've been staring at the opposite sex from me and seeing the attention that they get from being pretty. What does that even feel like?
Yeah.
What would it be like to be that? Yeah.
And it's like, you know, so when you start to heal those wounds and you start to actually have a kind of internal dialectic where you start to ask yourself, like, what do I actually feel good in? You know, I can tell a story about all the different ways in which I chose to dress and how that inform how I dress now. And all the different steps and places in which, you know, like I got inspired or, you know, like I had an elevated moment that like allowed me to be more self-expressive than many men I know. And that required me to do a lot of work in healing wounds. And oftentimes, you know, like I consider like sometimes I used to put on a suit to feel like I had armor on. Even though the rest of the world would probably look at me a little funny, I would put that suit on. I was like, oh, I feel good. And so, you know, when you choose, like, you know, it's there's a term, it's actually a funny term, fetish, Fetish has many different meanings. There's the term fetish, which is like, oh, well, I'm really into like feet or whatever. But then there's also a fetish is something that you imbue with power. And so, sometimes, when you're going through hard times or when you're trying to process something, it benefits you as a kind of almost magical practice to imbue some object with a part of your own power. And when you put that object on, it helps you feel stronger and more secure.
Like a sword.
Yeah. Or, like my harness here. It's like something that I wanted since I was a young man.
I know we don't wear swords anymore, but sorry, that was the first visualization I got.
Well, I mean,
And yes, your harness. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, your harness is hot. It's cute.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so, yeah, when you stop asking yourself who will shame me for what I want, and start asking just yourself, like, what do I want? Then you get to go on a different adventure, and you get to actually start to play. And what so many men need right now, it's so funny. We're all playing video games and yet so divorced from the concept of play. Where, you're just like, hey, like, let's be silly. Let's act out the dynamics of our relationships and have deep conversations about why someone hurt us and so on and so forth. Or, that can be play, or that can be really deep, or, getting silly and like chasing each other and laughing and wrestling, or, whatever else. But, we are very much supported in that in our younger years. And then once you move into your teens,
gotta be serious.
Everything has to be serious.
Gotta be serious.
Everything has to be serious. And
so
it's
serious.
so annoying.
Yeah, so serious. Well, I mean, if my parents were really serious, I don't know.
Yeah, it's how it's modeled.
Or, if my parents were super passionate and fought and yelled at each other all the time, like, I expect that. And when someone else does it to me, then that's love.
Yeah.
And then I have to realize, well, there's a lot of different versions of love, right? And I get to explore what that means to me. Yeah. Hopefully grow in some ways where I'm attracting things into my environment that are actually beneficial, more beneficial. You get better as you get older, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You describe yourself as a tetrahedron. Is that how you say it? In a square world. What does that feel like from the inside?
I mean, it kind of relates to our previous question of that, like, this world requires for us to become flattened to function within it. You have to shed your need for adulation. You need to shed your conception of your own beauty. You need to, do all of these different things to, become a cog, to provide this.
To fit in.
Yeah. And so,
fit in our box.
Yeah. It's like coming here and being vulnerable and knowing that, you have an audience and, being a little afraid of, like, if I truly share all these things, if I share, my sexual history, my relationship with, all these, other kind of, like, whether I'm queer or whatever else, like, all of these things, there are a lot of systems in society that will oppress that and try to control that.
Yes, which is why I'm trying to get it out.
Yeah. And so it requires us, risk and vulnerability.
Fuck repression.
Yeah.
I'm over it. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
But, it's like, I feel like, there's so many men out there who have become boxes.
Oh, God, yes.
And they don't recognize that inside that box are many more sides that should come out into the world and be seen.
Or you could just be like, hey, let's do a remodel. There's some space behind this wall. Mind pushing it out a couple feet? Could be a little bit breathier in here. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, flexibility would be nice. A little bit, just a little less rigidity, a little bit more flexibility in the world would be awesome. You've said that defining yourself publicly feels terrifying. What part feels hardest to claim?
For me, it's power.
Okay, tell us more.
I mean, growing up with, very kind of economically destitute and difficult circumstances, I have not felt like, I went to Reed College, but I didn't feel privileged to that space.
I can't imagine. Yeah. Your intellect is definitely privileged.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
But, it's like I have worked so hard to be a safe person. And I have so often seen men who choose and inherit their power be very unsafe people. And so to be able to choose power and still be safe is something that I am not entirely confident in my capacity to do. And so, and also, when I post things on the internet and I'm sharing things that are going on in my head or my heart, there are people who will attack me for all of those different things for all sorts of reasons. And, I feel like I've finally reached a point where I can be just like, okay, whatever. I don't want to even have that conversation with that person. I don't even want to engage. But it's terrifying to expose your heart and have someone put a knife in it. And the reality is that when you learn how to, there's a way in being both armored and vulnerable at the same time.
Shielded vulnerability.
Yeah.
Yes, they teach people that.
Yeah. And so it's like, I can be really vulnerable. And if I'm so confident in my expression of my vulnerability, then when people come and be like, you're an idiot or stupid or whatever else, I just go like, okay, that's your opinion.
Totally. And your perception of reality.
Yeah. And also that seems like a lonely, weird place to live.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good for you. And have the right response.
And I see that modeled a lot in the women that I see that I follow on the internet of so often they're like, I'm out here being beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to have fun with it. I'm going to show my titties. I'm going to be put thirst traps all over the internet because when I look at these pictures, I feel beautiful. I'm not posting them for you. And so when men are like, oh, that's hot. They're like, it's like why I've done a lot of work to be like, okay, when I post something in response, I actually have to have a point. I don't just say that's hot. They know. You've got to have a perspective. It's like anything. It's art.
Yeah.
If you don't have a perspective on art, then you don't talk about the art.
Well, I mean, there are people that still talk about the art, but yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. What internal work is required for men to feel emotionally safe for themselves and their partners?
I mean, this is the hardest question of them all, I think, because what they need most of all is community. And that is the one thing that they cannot have. Without someone giving them the models of vulnerability and care and safety. And so that's why I have felt so called to doing the work, is that they need to be doing it. It's like what all women are always saying, why don't you do it for each other? Because, as we were talking about early on in our conversation, oftentimes when a man, is treated to a lot of empathy by a woman, he treats that as an invitation to intimacy. And when she's just being kind and oh, I see you, I'm just being present with you. And then all of a sudden he's like, I'm obsessed. And you're just like, okay, that's not what I was asking for. And so, you need to create and find that intimacy with people that you are not sexually interested in.
Yeah, but a lot of that has to do with trauma too.
Yes.
Yeah. There's actually a trauma pattern specific or profile specific to being attracted to somebody when someone is kind to you.
Yep.
Yeah, especially if that was modeled to you as a kid.
Oh, yeah. So I think that a lot of it is in like, I think about this a lot, like creating vulnerability games with your guy friends where, like you start, whether you use Esther Perel's book or box.
They've got some great cards out there. Yeah.
But like, how do you get a bunch of guys together to go and pull these cards and have that conversation rather than just going and playing?
You start a men's group. You would be the perfect person to start a men's group.
I did run one for a while.
Did you?
Yeah, I called it Boy Brunch.
That's adorable.
Yeah. But I also realized that it was not the conversation that I wanted to be having everywhere. What I've been working on recently is actually having a forum on the erotic, because I feel like, I want men's groups, but I don't feel like that's entirely my role, because I want to be having a more expansive conversation around beauty and eroticism. And that if I feel like I go into doing the men's work, then that will become all-consuming.
Okay.
So I want to create a space.
You want to more write about it.
Yes.
And get publication on it.
Yes. I want to write. I want to speak. I want to,
Yay.
Yeah. I want to start broadcasting some of my perspectives, because I feel like that was a good way to reach a larger audience.
You're also an orator, for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What does responsible, emotionally aware desire look like?
It is taking responsibility for it. No one else is responsible for your desire. And you have to build a healthy relationship with it, where you recognize that it's a place of play, and and making someone else responsible for your desire is the fastest way to quench any experience of eroticism.
Yeah. Making anyone responsible for anything that has to do with you is the quickest way to like torpedo a relationship. Yeah.
And then I lost my train of thought there.
That's okay. That's okay. How can men transform shame into creativity?
That was a good question. I think that's actually one of the issues that I have with the current men's group model, is that oftentimes they start to bathe in their own shame, or that they're like, the conversation becomes like, oh, well, I'm a man and I'm suffering in this way and I feel so alone. And instead, you've got to be like, okay, like, yeah, almost all humans are lonely. We're all struggling with like feeling very isolated in this very complicated world. But you have to like, it is best when you interact with your shame and be curious about it. When you're curious about the places that hold shame for you, then that becomes like, oh, okay, like, why do I have an orientation towards, this particular kind of kink or outfit or feet or whatever? I don't have a thing on feet. I just said that twice, so you'd think I might, but no.
Even if you did.
It wouldn't be a problem.
Yes.
I just want to be clear of anybody who might be interested in me. It's like, don't suddenly come out with his feet. I have no problem with... Never mind. But
Benjamin, I have really nice feet.
I'm sure you do. But I... like where you can learn to laugh about it, because like shame is absurd.
Oh yeah, but inherited shame is something that we don't always know what to do with.
Yeah, but like shame is a method of control, and when you choose to surrender control, then shame starts to evaporate.
I agree. It can come up to the surface to breathe, for sure.
And it can be a really fun place to play when you learn how to build that relationship with it.
Tell us more about that, Benjamin.
Like there are few places, like, you know, that's why there were so many things around like, you know, like dressing up as a priest and playing, like, so if someone's Catholic, you know, playing the confessor to like your sexual partner, you know, it holds a lot of erotic charge because it is a place where you experience shame. And so when you play in that place, and that's why, you know, unfortunately, I think that's a big source of why we have the issues around erotic violence, or not erotic, excuse that word, sexual violence in the world today, is that, you know, like they learned to play in this, they learned not to play, but they learned to use the shame to gratify themselves. And that's really unhealthy. That's just that's where, yeah, that's where disease lives.
Okay. What role does art, erotic writing, or storytelling play in healing masculine sexual shame?
That's a good question, and a good inspiration for me to do a lot more writing. You know, it's like, you know, I wrote a threesome erotica for a couple that I was dating for. I was dating one of them, and there's a possibility of us all dating, but that never happened. And then they had a kid, and that's a whole other story. But you know, I wrote an erotic story for them, and you know, like one of the things that I struggle with when I read erotica or written by men is that often it's just a power fantasy. It's like, oh, I am the biggest, strongest guy who can get all of the girls, and all the girls want to sleep with me. And isn't that nice? I just touch them and they have orgasms. And yet, like, creating a true depth of eroticism takes so much thought and work and knowledge of the other person.
Totally.
And men don't even know where to begin to create that knowledge of someone to create an erotic space with them. So I think that erotica is a great way, especially, you know, it's like, I mean, I've read a lot of the kind of, you know, smutty books that a lot of women are into these days. And to be honest, those also lack a lot of the depth that I would want. And it's funny how many of the women who have like written these books came from like a very deeply religious background. And it's fairly apparent in the text because there is still, you know, there's at least more romance and relationship and connection, but there isn't a lot of the like complexities of like how these things actually work.
Yeah.
And so I think that storytelling can be an incredible way, pardon me, to allow people to explore and communicate how you actually engage in these kind of more complex relationships.
Yeah, I would agree. Do you think men understand what kind of intimacy they authentically want, or have they only learned to want what they believe is allowed?
I would say at this stage, the latter. You know, it's like you don't know that you want good tea until someone's taught you what good tea is.
You're speaking my language.
And so, like, you know, like when I read, you know, like I've been reading this one that is like a little sci-fi, and I'm just like, oh, this guy has no idea. Yeah. And there's no real depth or complexity to this, and no strangeness, and no beauty, and no mystery.
Yeah, it's like porn.
Yeah.
No depth, no story, or the same story.
Yep.
You've been training in a year-long Shibari program, a deeply embodied form of trust and creation. What called you to that practice?
Part of it's just, it's pretty.
It is pretty.
But also, you know, I had a young woman who approached me a few years back and, you know, came up to me really strong and was like, I want to do all of these things, and I think you're pretty, and, you know, like, let's do all these things. And at that moment I was like, no, I don't know you.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. But we built a friendship over the years. And, you know, she had to go through a lot of like, you know, I believe what the term is like sub frenzy, when someone is first exposed to the elements of kink and so on and so forth, that you get really excited to do all the things,
For
and
sure.
yet you don't know enough about it to understand what that excitement means. And so, you know, when we've continued to build the friendship, and I was like, okay, like I needed to have someone that I could trust to go into that space with. And we've been very clear and that like our relationship was not sexual. And I was like, oh, okay, I have someone safe and strong and also very opinionated and who will like push back on me and be like, I don't like this and I need this different. And I've been able to continue to create a really safe space for them. Sorry, I should be clear. I said woman. They are non-binary. That is an error.
In a female body.
Yes. But yeah. And then also, as I have continued to create a space of like love and connection, I've, you know, they've been able to come to me more with like, oh, I want this to change. You know, like they already had a strong voice and they have felt safe enough to continue building an even stronger voice with me.
That's awesome.
So, you know, it's, you know, impact kink is relatively easy because, you know, you can work someone up. With rope, you're working with like pain and positioning in a very different way.
Yes, you are.
And I have to be much more thoughtful. And also I have to be okay with pain in a different way. Because like with, you know, spanking or flogging or something like that, you're like, okay, slowly working you up. I can listen to your body. With rope, I've got you up in the air and all of a sudden it shifts. And then that person's like, ow.
Ow.
This is really uncomfortable.
There's
and instead
a lot of trust.
And also I have to learn to calm that part of myself that goes like, I have to fix this now.
Now.
Instead, I'm like, okay, tell me where this pain is. How can we shift it? It's created a much more deep relationship with, you know, the kind of communication that works within.
Yes. The communication that was lacking in your family.
Yeah.
That's what you're relearning.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're reparenting yourself in that relationship.
Oh, yeah.
You both are.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know quite a bit about it. I actually was on FetLife in my 30s, and yeah, my ex-husband was very much into that scene. So, I mean, I've had friends that are really great. I don't remember what it's called, but whoever does that is in charge of the rope,
Yeah.
that person.
Rope top.
Yeah, the top. Yeah, but I can't remember.
Rigger.
Yeah, thank you. I've known some riggers. I was never, I mean, I cannot, yeah. No way can I surrender to a stranger doing that to me. But props to the women who can, or to anyone who can for that matter. They don't have to be
One
women.
of the things I am actually trying to do is find more men to tie.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's a lot of different ways in which that changes the work.
Totally.
And I also, you know, it's like most of the women or non-binary folks who get tied up that way, they feel really beautiful when they're like held in these positions. And I, as I said, as an advocate for men and beauty, it's like I want more men to feel beautiful that way. But that requires a level of surrender that most
I was just
men
gonna
are
say,
terrified of.
Yeah. A lot of surrender for anyone who is up in the air. Yeah. Because you're bound.
Yep.
What has rope, I guess you kind of already explained this. What has rope work taught you about surrender, boundaries, or control? Without me speaking for you.
Yeah. You know, so I have been tied up a few times myself. But I also, I've been really choosing, you know, I would say that I was much more of a switch most of my life and much more of, you know, like being queer, being bisexual, you know, being like, I was like, okay, well, you know, I want to experience things and I feel like I need to know what they feel like before I do them to someone else. But I've been choosing my dominance in a lot of ways because I want to be the person that builds the story. And so Yeah, say the question one more time. My brain
What has rope work taught you about surrender, boundaries, or control?
As I said, surrendering the fact that I cannot control the amount of pain that I'm doing my best
Yes.
to control how much pain.
Yeah. But what about when you're tied up? What have you learned about you when you're tied up? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But...
Yeah, no. It's interesting because I've only really been tied up a few times.
Okay. And were the experiences good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but for me, whenever I'm in that state, I don't think that I've really surrendered to it. Like, I'll get tied up, but I had a friend of mine put me in a leg harness and an upper body harness a little bit.
Yes.
And then I kind of got silly and I started running away on my knees, because I was just it was play.
Uh-huh.
And then when I was tied up in the air by a friend, I was like, okay, I want this experience. And then, I started feeling numbness in my arms, and I was like, okay, we got to change this.
Yeah.
And so, I would say
a lot of pressure on the body.
Yeah, I would say that it didn't have the same relationship with surrender. Because I was like, okay, I want to know what this feels like before I do it to someone else, not like I am ready to be in that mental state.
Yes, and it is a state.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm reading through stuff, sorry, because I'm noticing that we're getting closer on time. What fantasies or subjects do you think men should be talking about but aren't?
I mean, I feel like a lot of them would benefit from exploring the concept of homoeroticism. Where are you? If you do not know your own boundaries in relationship to the men you have in your life,
totally,
then how can you have deeply intimate relationships with them? And so if something feels good and you're like, oh, I'm hanging out with a guy friend and we're feeling really emotionally close, as we've come back to again, oftentimes when they start to experience that intimacy, they're like, oh, does this mean sex?
Yeah.
And so they have to start experiencing okay, one of the things that I was expressing recently was, you better figure out who you would fall in love with in yourself. If you do not know how beautiful you are, and if you do not have the capacity to look at yourself and be like, oh my gosh, I am gorgeous, then how is anybody else going to find you beautiful?
Yeah.
And that is it's the most homoerotic experience, looking at yourself and being like, this is beautiful.
And owning that, appreciating it. What does ethical, conscious, modern eroticism look like to you?
I would say that my experience of that is still very new. And I would not say that I know it well enough to speak deeply about it.
Okay.
In the queer communities that I'm in, I see people playing and creating beauty in ways that I had a friend of mine do a tarot reading for me recently, and one of the things she expressed about this work was, she was like, you're gonna have to really dig into some of your deep dark demons and break them down to because I've chosen to love my masculinity, and so to figure out a masculinity that has the capacity to embody the kind of erotic that I want requires a level of self-transformation and self-examination that I've been working on my entire life, but it still feels so new. And it's really hard to do the work because there are not many men who are willing to be in community with me.
Totally.
Around that particular subject.
Yeah.
And so it feels like I'm, even though the audience is massive, it feels like I'm trying to write for an audience of one, and that I don't have people around me who can moderate or have the kind of conversation that deepens it. So that's another reason I'm grateful to be here.
Oh, thank you. What do you think men actually need emotionally, sexually, spiritually that they're not yet willing to admit?
I mean, intimate friendships with the men in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like to actually be able, you know, like one of the most beautiful things that happened for me recently was a good friend of mine that I've made in the last year. You know, he just called me up and he was like, I'm really sad and I need someone to talk to. And like I was talking to my therapist about this recently, and you know, I tear up a little bit even saying is like my heart just said finally, because like I don't want to be someone who like pushes into someone's into like you can't
Yeah.
force yourself into
Yeah,
that kind of intimacy.
yeah.
And so to have like a guy friend be like, I need someone just to witness and hold me in my sadness.
Yeah.
And that's what men need more than anything
anything.
else.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else.
From each other and from us.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But they better, you know, it's like, you know,
But they better feel it safely with you first.
and you know what most women express about their relationships with men is like, oh, I don't really want to get involved with them because like I will now become the become the bearer of all of their emotional burdens.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, you know, you come straight from like, oh, hey, this is so fun, we're having a great time, and then all of a sudden he's like, I'm depressed, and now we live together, and my depression is carrying everything down, and then she goes like, well, don't you have someone else to talk to? And they go, no. It's like, I wouldn't want to date men either.
Mm.
So like until you learn to find other people to share and carry your burdens with you, you are not ready to share and carry those burdens with a partner.
Preach. Sorry, there's a whole reason why I wanted you to be here. You said men often participate in their own isolation. Tell us more.
I mean, I have been such the culprit in this. You know, they're like, you know, whether it's like I turn on a video game or, you know, I don't feel like anyone, you know, women in my life who've like asked me how I'm feeling and I just go like, I'm fine. You know, it's not a conscious participation. It's, you know, I don't think anyone would choose this kind of pain. But when, you know, like, it's the same thing with poverty. When no one's taught you how to like manage your money or create wealth or whatever else, you don't see any pathway out of the darkness.
Do you think that there is some fear around being safely held?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, masculine culture for much of Western society has been a culture of violence. When someone reveals their vulnerability or their fear or their anxiety or their sadness, you get mocked. And it's so funny, you know, it's like one of the things I struggle with.
Or attacked.
Yeah. And, you know, so like one of the things that, you know, I struggle with a lot of the kind of normal, like, you know, like whether it's at my workplace or whatever else, you know, like one of the ways in which people often convey their respect for you is how they mock you. They know that they can say all these things to you. And so that's how they're like, oh, he's my guy because like I can call him a shithead and be like, blah, 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 blah. But that deflates and deflects from the deep emotional experience of like, hey, I'm scared right now. And I, you know, like where, you know, I may notice a coworker has a drinking problem and I can't even begin to have that conversation with them because, you know, all we do is go out and have beers and commiserate about whatever.
Yeah.
But not like, hey man, are you okay?
Yeah.
So.
What conversations between men would heal the most harm if they became normal?
I mean, it's just that right there of I'm not okay. And men learning how to hold the place of I'm not okay without trying to fix it. Because that's, so often the response that many of us have, men and women alike, is someone says, I'm hurting. And the reality is not one of us can repair the places that someone else is hurting.
Totally.
All you can do is witness it and offer perspective.
Couldn't have said it better than myself. What do you hope men feel when they hear this conversation?
Seen. One of the things that it's happened a number of times in my life is like, there was a time where I danced burlesque and I had a guy walk up to me afterwards and he said, I did not know that men could move that way. And, there's been times where I get like I love to dress up and, there's like.
You were a terrific Maleficent. And by the way,
thank you.
I was a Maleficent, which is hilarious to me.
I was a maleficent.
I know. I almost broke out a picture for you. I forgot about that. Yeah. Maybe I'll do that after the show. But either way.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You like to dress up. That's awesome. I love dressing up.
Me too. That's obviously we just said.
What do you hope women understand about men from this conversation?
That you can have compassion without being invested. That oftentimes there's a lot of conversation about there that's very negative about men. And for good reason. Your pain is valid. But if you actually want the kind of partners, if you're especially heterosexual and you want the kind of partners who can meet you where you are, you have to be willing to have the conversation of like, hey, I hear that you're hurting, or I hear that you're exhibiting this behavior that is kind of toxic towards me and I'm not appreciating it. So I need you to go talk to someone else. Instead of saying like, screw you, you're a terrible human being. To be honest, like when you shame men for how they behave, that's kind of getting them off. When men come to you with that kind of energy, like that feeds their like psychosexual habit of like, oh, now I'm ashamed. Oh, one of the ways I process shame is going off and masturbating. So now I've got this erotic charge. This woman just like diminished me. And then that feeds the whole pattern with them. So instead, it's like, there's a kind of masculinity. It's like they're like being a proper like father figure. In my mind, is someone who says like, I'm going to set good boundaries for you, where you go like, okay, this behavior is not acceptable.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry that you feel like you have to express it this way, and I need you to go talk to somebody because this is not the place.
Yeah.
And so if women can be willing to have that conversation more consistently, of instead of like, screw you, you're terrible.
You know why that is, right?
Why is that?
We have to repair our relationship with our own masculinity.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't modeled to us because our dad was completely gone working, then, we learned some bad habits from our mom, who's also enraged about the fact that our dad is always working. Yeah. And so that's the only way we know how to get your attention, or that's what we've learned to do to express ourselves. And I'm not justifying it by any means, but absolutely. For a woman who has been able to heal that within her, that would be the first step for sure. What a wonderful conversation with you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate you coming on and sharing everything. There were so many moments that I was like, yes. Yes. So thank you. And thank you for everyone who's listening. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.